IceCool 2. This is the sequel slash remake of IceCool, a dexterity game that came out a couple of years ago that at first sight, I don't know, seemed a little underwhelming, didn't seem to have much to go for it. It is a flicking game in which you flick your components and you're trying to hit the components of the opponent who is trying not to get cut. But then these components that you flick are these adorable little penguins that, on top of looking adorable, also are balanced in a way that really allows you to do some sort of crazy stuff, some very interesting effect. Also, the play area is a three-dimensional play area with variable layout, and you can do different things there. And also it feels, well, it constrains gameplay and gives you obstacles in a way that it's fun and challenging to try to get where you want to go through the doors that are created by different rooms of the game. But however, IceCool, the original game, turned out to be much more than I expected. Turned out to be a real hit with my family, with my friends. I just enjoyed it. Just doing these crazy things with these penguins turned out to be really fun. So I was very curious when I saw that there was an IceCool 2. In truth, IceCool 2 could be seen as a standalone expansion, but could also really be seen as a remake. IceCool 2 is almost identical to IceCool 1. You have a different set of rooms, meaning that the graphics on the rooms are different, but exactly the same combination, exactly the same size as the original rooms. You have 4 penguins, which are different colors, but they work exactly like in the original game. There are maybe 1 or 2 game effects that are different, but basically it really feels like a reprint of the original game with a 2 after the title and the components looking differently. And so maybe you have IceCool 1, you're perfectly happy with it, and you're like, okay, thank you, Marco, I don't need to watch the rest of your video review. But wait, there is more, because actually there are things that you can still do if you combine the 2 sets. One is, well, now you can play with more than 4 players, of course, but another very interesting thing to me, and it is the reason why you may consider IceCool 2 if you like IceCool 1, is that you can combine the components of the 2 sets precisely because they're the same scale, they have the same proportions. Now you can have larger layouts and more variety in the way that you create different spaces each time. Now there is value there if you enjoyed the original game and you want to play it according to a slightly different set of challenges and with more replay value. So you can play the traditional game, I'm gonna catch you and you're gonna try to run from me and catch the fish, and then we alternate. You can play the original game now when you combine the elements of the 2 sets. You can play the original game in a larger area or in an area with a different shape. What is also interesting to me, and to me is the selling point, at least the thing that I like the most in IceCool 2 played in combination with IceCool 1, is that now you can play the 2 together as a racing game. You can in fact follow one of the layouts described in the rulebook, and now you have a much larger area than before, and now the game is about, we all start from a certain spot, we race around the high school trying to catch all the fish of our color, and the first penguin to catch all their fish and will go to a certain room, which is designed as the finishing line, wins the game. As simple as that. And yet it is really pretty fun, especially with a high count of players to get into this crowded place where everybody is trying, for example, to go to the same door at the same time or to get there first. You bump into each other. There is a crazier interaction. It's wacky races sort of interaction. So let me show you how IceCool 2 works, although mainly show the components, because for gameplay of the traditional IceCool game, you can just watch my original review, because the game is almost the same. But I want to give you a sense of what is in the box of IceCool 2 and what you can do when you combine it with IceCool 1. IceCool 2 comes with 4 new penguins in the colors that you see here. It also comes with a new set of rooms. The rooms are, as for size, proportion, exactly the same as the ones in the previous set. You will see, however, here that they have a different pattern. They have these like large slabs of broken ice as opposed to the scratch ice that you had in the previous set. This is from IceCool 1 and this is from IceCool 2. As you can see, this is a pattern in IceCool 2 tiles or boxes or rooms that allow you to separate them at the end when you combine them, like I've just done here, but I'll show you later how that works. The rules for the traditional game are exactly the same as you have in the previous game, with one main difference. Now we have tasks. Some cards that you gain when you're scoring will also allow you to score extra points if you perform a certain task, such as jumping over a wall or passing completely through 2 doors on a single flick and stuff like that. So in general, you can play IceCool 2 just the same way you played IceCool 1. Somebody being the catcher, other people being the people that run away and try to get the fish, and then you alternate who the catcher is and who the people that run are. But you can play just exactly as in IceCool 1. What I like the most, however, is that now, by combining the 2 games together, like you have in this ginormous situation here, you can play the game as a race game. Basically, there are different scenarios, different configurations in which you can combine the rooms, and simply you place all the penguins in a starting area, and then their job is to run through the door and catch all of their fish, and the first player to get all of their fish and to get their penguin in the final room, and the scenario will be that one, wins the game. It is now a race game, which you can play in teams. You can play here up to 8 players, and even if you play with this many players, well, you know, downtime is not gonna be too bad, because that was my turn, that is your turn, and you regret not paying more attention, and then I take my turn, and then somebody else takes their turn, etc, etc. And yes, you may probably pay more attention and do better than what I'm doing here, but still you're flicking. A turn is flicking a penguin, so it still shouldn't take too long. So this is pretty much the general idea. This is one of the possible configurations. Let me show you another track that you can use using the game pieces from IceCool 1 and 2. Now, mind you, the game can also be played in the traditional version, in the usual catcher versus runners version, by combining game pieces from both sets. For example, this setup here, this layout here, is pretty much an extended version of the original setup. You can play for the traditional game, or you can play for the race game, which is, well, what I like the most by far. In this version, in the race game, the penguins will start from there. They will have to collect fish in those from those gates there, and then the first player, the first penguin with 3 fish to reach that room, will win the game. And so when you look at the configuration, you have some interesting decisions to make. You may go through there and here, then go through that door, and then, well, I suppose the best way would be to go there, and then maybe back there, or go around this way, which may seem longer, but if everybody is also trying to push this way, then you're not causing a bottleneck, you're not getting stuck in a bottleneck, then you go around here and you try to get there. Or I guess you could do differently, maybe you go through that gate, then here, and then here directly, which, come to think of it, seems great. But you forgot that fish, see? So maybe there, and there, and there here. So it can be just this, just to give you a sense of the joyful mess that these penguins can cause, especially when you have a high number of players. And then we have some advanced layouts, such as this one, that have mobile rooms. Yes, in this case, for example, that room there can be moved. Any player, before flicking their penguin, can move this room anywhere the room can possibly go. And these layouts are structured in such a way that by moving the room cleverly, you may create shortcuts, and or you may simply move the enemies with you. Of course, they'll be able to move back, but it's still pretty fun. Now, for example, here, if you're playing the race game, you start from there, and you need to get that fish there. But then when you're here, as you can see, well, here, there's a door on this side, but it's walled on the other side. So to get out here, to get in the next section, you need to call the magic moving room, and maybe that's when you then get here, and then you move here, and then from there you proceed there, and they're here, and then you call the magic room again after you get your third fish, because in this game the magic moving room is the finish line, is where you need to go to win the race. So just to give you a sense of the variety of things that you can find in the scenario book of IceCool 2, but also just an inspiration, because of course once you get the general idea, you can create your own layouts, whether with moving parts or not. So in general, I like the racing game. To me, that is the point. The original game was fine enough. Now, in retrospect, I don't mind having different layouts, but the game was so solid, so fun, that I liked it already. But then in retrospect, again, I think I like it even more now. If the play area is larger, I have more maneuvers, more ways to sneak away from my opponent, or as the catcher to actually find combinations of doors that I'm trying to cross and may appear peekaboo where you did not expect me to be. So it is just a more interesting space to navigate and to play with. But to me, really, the selling point, the winning point is the race game, which is so simple. Those are game night in which I simply set it up next to the main area, because I thought this is going to be the greatest filler. When people are I finish one game before we start another, maybe the other group has not finished their game, you just go and I can teach you the game in 10 seconds. Flick the penguin, go through the doors with your fish, get to the room, you win. Once you set up the board, which of course takes a little bit of work to set up the whole space, then to set up a game is place the penguin in a room. You're done. It is just so simple, so intuitive. Kids like it just like they like the original game, because again, it's intuitive and there is that excitement of racing. In fact, for example, my 6-year-old daughter did not like all that much in the original IceCool game to be caught. In fact, when I play with her, she's always the catcher. Yeah, we had to change scoring a little bit. She's always the catcher. She doesn't like the idea of getting caught. Lo and behold, we don't have to worry about that anymore, because now we don't have those roles that switch. We're all in the same position. It is just so straightforward, so simple, and yet it works. It is not quote-unquote deep. It is ultimately a dexterity game. But there's that. Within the category of dexterity games, IceCool 2 has to be IceCool, and IceCool 2 has to be one of my favorite games. And I really, really like what you can do with IceCool 2 combined with the first one and turning the two into a single large racing game, which also, by the way, looks pretty good, just the aesthetics of it. And I'm almost thinking, once you build all of the thing, you could almost use it like terrain for miniature wargaming. Frankly, I like if some people started making this kind of like rooms, but representing dungeons or sci-fi places. I would definitely be into that. I throw it out there. Kickstarted already, just thank me in the Kickstarter for the great idea that I just gave you. But back to us, IceCool 2 is a fun addition to IceCool 1. If you don't have either, well, you can start either place, but at some point you really may want to upgrade to getting both and combining them with the racing game, because the racing game is really, really darn fun.